Have you ever wondered if some of the difficulties that you go through in life have some kind of divine purpose? Do you ever scratch your head and wonder, is anything good going to come out of this situation? You know, the Apostle Paul had his ups and downs on his missionary journeys. And yet in Philippians chapter 1 and verse 12, there's a little verse where he says, I want you to know, brethren, that God has used my difficulties to advance the gospel. Evidently, the suffering that Paul was going through at that time was being used of God in a wonderful way. Well, what was his suffering? His suffering was that in Acts chapter 28, he was under house arrest for 2 years. For 2 years, spinning his wheels, wondering, why am I not on the mission field doing what God has called me to do? But because of some unfair religious leaders in Palestine, he was stuck in this prison, in this rented apartment in prison for 2 years. And yet, the Apostle Paul, while he was there, realized that God gave him a ministry. Guard after guard would come in to watch over him and secure him. And every time there was a conversation, and evidently about the gospel. And so many of these soldiers became believers in Christ that at the end of Philippians in chapter 4, Paul says, I send you greetings from the household of Caesar. Not from Caesar himself, but from all these soldiers that now were a contingent, a mini church as it were, in the household of Caesar because of the witness Paul had because he was a prisoner. And he says, you know, not just that, but in Philippians chapter 1, he says, the weak now are speaking, those that were timid now are bold, and God is doing special things with me tied up. You know, my friends, we could never imagine the church exploding with the Apostle Paul on the sidelines. And yet God put him on the sidelines to mobilize and to work in the lives of other people. And that's what God does through our difficulties. Don't be sitting there scratching your head wondering, does God have a purpose? No. He's at work in the good times and bad. And he is using your circumstances to move in the hearts of other people who are watching you. I was talking to a friend one time who had an alcoholic issue. And once he went to a little Baptist church, became a Christian, and his life has changed, and God delivered him from his problems. And one day he came to our Bible study that we were holding in the business at that time. And he said, Ron, I want to introduce you to a friend. And afterwards, he said, the friend would like to talk to you. And when the friend came in, I said, how can I help you? He said, I don't know. He says, Joe has changed. We used to have these same kind of problems, but now he's free of those problems. How can I be freed up? You know, old Joe was going through all these difficulties and struggles and failures in life. But God was at work. God was at work in the lives of other people who were watching him. My friends, just as God used Paul's difficulties for the progress of the gospel, God is at work in your life to touch other people for him.